Hi everyone, I'm Pat Prokop out in the Heavenly Backyard Garden. Today is March 11th and usually I don't plant my tomato plants out in the Heavenly Backyard Garden until after St. Patrick's Day, which is March 17th. However, I know a meteorologist that tells me that it looks like you're safe to plant now in my zone. I'm in coastal Georgia and southern South Carolina, but I'm in coastal Georgia. And it looks like I'm good to go to plant the tomatoes and the cucumbers. Now, the reason I want to plant early is because if you plant too late, it gets too hot. And if it gets too hot too soon, you're going to lose a lot of your tomato crop and your cucumber crop. So, because usually it just gets too hot around here. So you want to get those plants in early enough. And so the earlier you can get them in, the better off you're going to be. And a good gardener will always gamble a little bit. So I'm going to gamble saying that we don't have any more frost and freezes coming into my area. If I do, I can cover them up. Anyway, I'm going to plant the tomato plants today and some cucumber plants, also adding a few more potatoes. This is the perfect time of the year in the southeast anyway to plant potatoes. So let's go on, let's get to it. Welcome to Heavenly Backyard Gardening. This is my compost heap. I put all my yard waste in here, my dead banana tree bushes and leaves, canna leaves, and a lot of my green vegetation that is just yard waste. Instead of throwing it away, I compost it, and grass clippings as well. And over time, it just breaks down, and this is about a year's worth of compost here. It's about actually about 16 months worth of compost, and that's really good looking stuff right here. And as a matter of fact, I'm using this to fill up the base of the cucumber box, and I did it also with the tomato bed, raised bed. This compost almost looks too good to be on the bottom. It's looking some really good looking compost. Now this is the compost that I bought, the very good soil composted veggie mix, and I noticed it was a little bit too soggy after the 2.5 to 3 inches of rain that I just got the other night. So what I did in both beds is I mixed in some crushed pine bark to help with the aeration of this soil. So this should be in very good shape for the tomatoes and the cucumbers that I'll be planting in this. I'm just going to fill this up and get ready to plant the cucumbers. Going to add a few more things before, but this is the good work. Nothing better than a shovel and a rake. One of the things I've been researching on these raised beds is a lot of the mistakes I notice from the YouTube videos. They're making the issue that the raised beds aren't deep enough. So this one's going to certainly be deep enough. Plus the other advantage is a little bit higher up. It makes it easier for me to cultivate and harvest. Keep it off the ground. It also helps keep the rodents and pests out of here. Even though I don't have rabbits, this would be a good idea if you do have rabbits. It's just about full here. It's going to settle a little bit. A couple more. There we go. Several of the additional things I'll be adding to this soil will be composted chicken manure, earthworm castings, bone meal, and black cow manure. All that will be mixed in. This will be totally organic. I also had the same mixture over in the tomato bed as well. So let's mix this up and get ready to start planting. This is the black cow manure. I'll put a layer of that in there. That should be, one more. That should be enough. I'm going to add the worm castings. This is really, really rich stuff. And if you don't have worms, you can buy the worm casting. You don't need too much. Just spread it in there. And then the chicken manure. This is composted chicken manure. I add that in there. And I'm going to mix this all up. It's like I'm making a cake. This is my recipe. All right. That should be enough. Okay. The bone meal I'm going to add last. I'm going to add that just as I plant Yeah, a lot of times gardening is like baking. This is the recipe. It's like you're making a cake, baking a cake or making a cake. Sometimes I call it building a cake. But anyway, this is the recipe, and this is the batter, and I'll have everything ready to go, and I'll just let the sun do all the rest of the work after this. So everything's ready here in the raised bed to plant the tomato plants. So I went out and purchased my plants. I got me a 6-pack of Better Bush. Better Bush tomatoes. They're a bushier type tomato, and they have strong stems, or so I thought. These are supposed to be determinate tomato plants versus indeterminate. Determinate plants, they grow to a certain height, and that's about it, and they have strong stems to support themselves. But they're better off if you do grow them in a cage. However, an indeterminate plant will continue growing up and up and up, and you have to continually stake them as they get higher and higher and higher, not good for a raised bed. So I thought all Better Bush tomatoes would be determinate. Not the case. I found a case here, a 6-pack I bought, and thinking it was a determinate, and when I pulled out the label, I noticed it says indeterminate on the label. So I was very disturbed about that right there. I know you can't see it, but it says indeterminate, and meaning that this bush will not be a bush, but it'll be a high-growing tomato plant. So I went back to the store and bought me a 6-pack. I wanted a 6-pack of determinate Better Bush, and they had Better Bush determinate plants, but they were in a larger pot, and I didn't want to pay $5 a plant. So I wanted just to get a 6-pack, and they didn't have those. But they had a 6-pack of Celebrity determinate tomatoes, and this is Celebrity. It's about the same thing. And this one's also disease resistant for this area. And again, it's a determinate, so it'll grow into a bush. And the tomato, about the same size as the Better Bush, about 7 to 8 ounces. Better Bush, perhaps 8 to 9 ounces. But they're the size of baseballs, maybe tennis balls, or even softball size. Anyway, these are the plants I'm going to be putting into the ground. Now, I already mixed in all the nutriments that I wanted. I have the chicken manure, the cow manure, I have the compost, the veggie mix, and all that mixed together in here. Now, what I'm going to add as well to this position here for the plant will be bone meal. To add a little extra boost to the plant's vigorous growth. Bone meal gives that plant very good root growth and so forth. So I'm going to dig a small, not a hole, but more like a trough. And I'm going to take the plant out of its container here very carefully. I don't want to break the roots. And there they are. This plant is just ideal shape for transplanting right now. The roots are just beginning to get root bound. What I like to do is just break them open just a little bit to keep them from wrapping around the plant itself. Before I put the tomato in the box itself, I'm going to add some of this bone meal, and this helps with the root growth and gives the plant strong root growth, and you want that in your plant to help it, well, to grow. And then I put the plant in kind of like sideways and put more of the stem underground than as much of the stem I can get in the ground, I put in the ground, and then we'll prop it up right in this area here. But the more stem you have in the ground, those stems that are in the ground will generate new root growth, and the more roots you get, the better off you're going to be. Now, all I have to do is point it to the sun, there it is right there, and it should take off, and I should have some tomatoes coming up later on, probably late May and throughout June. And then it gets really hot out here, the tomato plants are more or less cooked beyond it. That's one of the reasons why I like to get my tomato plants in early, because if you wait too late, it gets too hot. And the hot weather, particularly here in the southeast, gets too hot for the tomato plants themselves. Now, along with the tomato plants in this raised bed here, I'm going to be planting French marigolds, and this is going to help ward off the root knot nematodes. Now, marigolds are good for that if you have the French type. Now, if you have the hybrid types, they're beautiful. And they grow vigorously. However, they don't have that, what I call some people call it the stench. I call it the aroma of the French marigold. And that is what works to help ward off the nematodes. So I believe this is a variety called Mary Jane, and it's a French double dwarfed marigold. So I'm going to plant those also within the bed here, along with some sweet basil. I have over here. So let's get one of these in right away. I'm gonna have to pull this whole thing out. And there's several plants in this one little pot here. And I'm just going to separate them and carefully. I don't want to break the roots too much. They're going to break a little bit. There you go. Well, that smells good. Anyway, they help ward off the insects that come in to land on the plant itself, particularly the aphids. They help ward them off because for some reason this confuses the aphids on where to land. So French basil and French marigolds are all in the park right here, growing into this raised bed. Park? I guess you can call it a park. I'm over here in the potato patch right now. I started some earlier in the month of February, but it's still not too late to plant potatoes. Matter of fact, some people say they don't dare plant potatoes until the moon is waning gibbous. And right now it's waxing gibbous. It'll be full on Thursday night, Friday morning. So if you want to go by the rule by planting only during a waning crescent moon, you have to wait until this weekend or next week. Now here's a typical seed potato right here. This potato is just yelling at me, say, please plant me. Look at all this growth on this potato. The eyes have sprouted and so forth. They were kept in a dark closet and that started them to sprout. Now, I could plant this whole potato in the ground and get a good potato bush out of it. However, I got 1, 2, 3, 4 good eyes that have sprouted already. And I can cut this in half. And the rule of thumb is if you want to cut your potatoes to get more yield, make sure you have at least 2 eyes per cut. So what I'm going to do is just cut it right here. And I'm going to have 2 eyes available to plant. Now, I could plant it like this, but this skin is very tender. So the ideal thing to do is to cut them a day or 2 in advance. Like right now, if you're going to plant with the waning crescent moon, now's the time to cut your potatoes and let them heal in the air. And then once they're healed, they'll look like this. These I cut a couple of days ago, and they're ready to be planted right into the ground itself. So let's do that. Let's get these in the ground. Now, similar to what I did with the tomato plants, I'm going to put some cow manure in here, some well-rotted cow manure and composted cow manure, and just put a little bit in there of that. And I'm also going to add the bone meal. I'm going to add a lot of bone meal as well. That's the phosphorus. And potatoes, anything that grows roots in the ground, particularly the tubers that grow in the ground, such as turnips and potatoes and radishes, whatever, that grow in the ground, the potash, the bone meal works very well for that. Here it is, 0, 10, 0. That's 0 nitrogen, 10 phosphorus, 0 potassium. The potato will love that. Now I'm just going to take the potato and just, since it's healed, just put it on the ground, space them out. I'm going to space mine out a little bit tighter than usual because I'm in a raised bed here, so somewhat of a raised bed. I built this raised bed about 10 years ago, and it's still doing very well. And there it is in the ground. What I'm going to do now is just cover them up just lightly. And I am not going to water them right now. They're not ready to be watered. Let the tubers come above the ground. Actually, the sprouts come above the ground. Once they come above the ground, then you can start watering. Over here, I started these about 3 weeks ago, and they already came up. And here's another row coming up right now. And then over here, this area here, I planted last November, early November. Actually, I think it was late October. And they wintered over. I covered them up. Still have the hoops on here where I covered them up during the hard freezes that we had in the snow and the sleet. And some of them didn't make it over there, but these made it. They survived. And look how lush they are. They're growing very well. And I hope to have potatoes by the end of March, maybe early April, but soon. The other potatoes that I'm planting now in the middle portion of March, they'll be ready by about the 3rd week in May, just after Mother's Day. Between Mother's Day and Memorial Day, I should be digging up fresh, yummy red potatoes. Well, thanks for watching my Heavenly Backyard Garden episode from March the 11th of 2025. I got the tomatoes in the ground. I decided to go half and half just to see what happens. So the back row, I planted those determinate celebrity tomatoes. And in the front row here, I planted the indeterminate bush tomato, which should have been a determinate tomato. We'll see what happens. These look like determinate, just coming out of the box themselves. But anyway, we'll watch them grow throughout the season. Over here, I'm planting the cucumbers. I added a cucumber trellis. I'm going to have some of them grow up the trellis, some growing, let them hang over on the edge. Within this, I'm going to also put a couple marigolds and some nasturtiums to help ward off the pest, the bugs, and add a little beauty at the same time. So thanks for supporting my channel, and you know, it would really help if you give a like to the channel, and if you really like gardening in the southeast United States, particularly in the coastal Georgia area, southern South Carolina, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I also have two other channels, my weather and nature page and my backyard heavenly astronomy page, and I have a link to those in the description box below. A lot of astronomy. I have telescopes. I have 3 big telescopes here in the backyard, in the heavenly backyard garden. The main thing though is the garden itself, and the daylilies. They're waking up right now. I just did a report on that, and if you want to see that report, it's right over there. You can see the report on the heavenly backyard, how it's waking up with the daylilies, and soon the dahlias will be waking up, and I'll be talking more about dahlias growing here in coastal Georgia, coming up very soon on Heavenly Backyard Gardening. Have a good day.